UFOs are real, burgeoning, and not going away. I'm here with Dr. Mike. He's got a story, and I think you'll find it interesting. But first, a word from our trusted sponsor. Have you ever wondered what happened to the legendary Chuck Norris? I recently saw a video he made, and now he's shot. The man is in his 80s and still kicking butt and working out and staying active. What's even more shocking is he's stronger, can work out longer, and even has plenty of energy left over for his grandkids. He did this by just making one change. He says he still feels like he's in his 50s. His wife even started doing this one thing too, and she never felt better. She says she feels 10 years younger. Her body looks leaner, and she has energy all day. Chuck made a special video that explains everything. Make sure you watch it by going to chuckdefense.com/LA or by clicking on the link below this video. It will change the way you think about your health. Once again, that's chuckdefense.com/LA. Click on the link in the description below to watch the video now. You won't believe how simple it is. Just a reminder, the legendary Chuck Norris is a whopping 84 years old and yet has more energy than I do. He discovered he could create dramatic changes to his health simply by focusing on 3 things that sabotage our body as we age. Folks, check this out. Please go to the description box below, chuckdefense.com/LA, www.chuckdefense.com/LA. Dr. Mike, thanks so much for coming on the record.
My pleasure. My pleasure to be with you today.
Thank you. The pleasure is all ours. And I want to thank you for your boldness to come on the record, because so many people have encounters and they hold them in and they never tell anybody about them.
Right.
And because of the ridicule and the stigma that goes with it. But all that's beginning to change as Congress is talking about the phenomena. And they're trying, in fact, just today I read where Nancy Mace is saying we need a body, one of these crashed non-human biologics brought before Congress, which is an unbelievable statement to
Yes,
make.
it is.
She's
Yes,
not
it
messing
is.
around. So tell us what happened. Where were you and what happened?
I want to reinforce something you said. I have not told a lot of people about this, and my philosophy on this situation was I didn't hide it, but if it came up, I would talk about it.
Okay.
That was my philosophy, and I haven't told that many people. This happened almost 40 years ago, but the details I'm going to share with you today are crystal clear.
Wow.
Crystal clear, especially 2 of them. So let me set the stage for you when this happened. To the best of my memory, this happened in mid to late October of 1987.
Okay, so it's a good ways away.
And at the time, I was living in upstate New York, about 60 miles north of New York City in what's called the Hudson Highlands. And I got to explain something. Geography is important in this story because I'm the only person I think you ever talked to had to look down to see a UFO.
Yeah, usually it's up.
Yeah, that's right, right. So the geography is where I worked and where I lived was separated by a big mountain in upstate New York on the west bank of the Hudson River. And the Native Americans gave this mountain a great name, Storm King.
Wow.
And it's about, don't quote me on this, but it's about 3,500 feet. This is a big, big hill.
Okay.
And I had to negotiate Storm King Mountain twice a day, going to and from work. So what happened was I worked a little later than normal on the day that this occurred. It was a beautiful fall day. It was after sundown, but in evening twilight. And let me explain something about the mountain. You went up the mountain like this, heading north home, and you got up about this high on it. And there's a very sharp curve.
A switchback.
A switchback.
Okay.
Unbelievable. Then on the backside, there was basically like a ski slope down road.
Oh my gosh.
Straight and
Okay.
narrow.
Wow.
So I'm driving home, and I go up the front side of the mountain around a switchback. And this is important what I'm going to show you. I came down the hill about that far.
So not very far.
Not very far. I'm still up at high altitude.
Okay.
I'm driving along, and it just so happened, by the grace of God, there's a lot of trees, of course, but there's an open area of about 70 meters or so
Okay.
on the side of the road. Of course, it's down into a valley, a long ways. And I'm beginning my descent down this road. The light is quickly fading. There is an orange glow, but the light's quickly fading there in October. All of a sudden, off to my right, down, I see a cluster of lights. That's strange. This all happened, in a matter of 60 seconds, what I'm telling you. But boys, it froze in my mind. I see this first cluster of lights. I see a second cluster of lights. Now, this has my attention.
Because those lights shouldn't be there.
That should be. It's open space. Normally, you would just look down into the valley floor. And here's another geographic point that's important. About 5 miles away is a parallel mountain.
Okay. So the mountains are like this.
Yeah, that's exactly
and the valley's
right.
down in the middle.
Storm King Mountain is here, and then there's another ridge of mountains.
All right.
And that's important in the telling of this story because I never got to see a sky profile of this machine, this flying machine. And but I saw other things, which I'm going to describe to you now. So I'm driving along. I see these two clusters of lights. It shouldn't be there. A third cluster appears. Whoa, what's going on here? I slow down, and again, by the grace of God, there's a pullover spot there. I think it's the only one on the side of the mountain. I pull over, put the car in park. By the time I do that, I look up, and now there's a fourth set of lights. And I'm thinking to myself, what am I seeing here?
Right.
What did these lights look like? They were evenly spaced. They reminded me of navigation lights on an aircraft. They were red, blue, yellow, and I think even some green, as I'm recalling. And some were slowly flashing, and others were on the whole time. Now, near this area, a couple of miles away, was an Army National Guard helicopter base.
Okay.
From the New York National Guard.
So you're probably thinking...
I'm kind of looking back on some of the training I've had. Here's what I thought. I'm seeing a flight of 4 helicopters.
Okay.
That's what I thought I was seeing. And they would be, and these were the clusters of lights, 1, 2, 3, 4. The problem was, this was in 1987. Those helicopters they had at the time were the old Huey helicopters in Vietnam. I'll come back to that in a minute. Very strange thing. It's one of my biggest memories of this was with these lights. There was a single light that was different on this craft, I'll call it. And it was about right here. From my perspective, I was looking at it. I was here looking this way.
Okay.
It was, I'll never forget this. It was on the side of some part of the structure, which I couldn't fully make out because of the lighting, limited lighting. Remember the old cop cars had the round rotating lights? This looked like that, except it was white. And it wasn't upright like the cop cars were. It was attached to the side of this machine, and it was rotating like that. This light was. And I thought, okay, so this is not a helicopter, I'm thinking now. Here's the other clue. Back then, the National Guard, the old Huey helicopter from Vietnam was still in service. You probably remember that, L.A. Remember the old Huey? It had a blade white that it was, you could hear it from 5 miles away. Boom, 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 boom. I'm not hearing that.
You're not hearing anything.
Did you get out? Emphasize that.
Did you get out of your car? Or
no, I was
the
so
window down.
That's the next thing I did.
Okay.
I had a 2-seat sports car then. I let the passenger window down.
All right.
Because I wanted to get a really good look as well as I could of this object. By the time that happens, that object is a beam of me, right there on my right side. I get a really good look at it. All these lights. This white light is turning, and this machine was in a positive glide slope. It was slightly climbing as it passed me. So I looked at it down here, and now it's right here, and it continued on in its climb.
Distance. Let's start. Let me nail that down.
Right.
So when you first sight this thing, how far away is it from you, roughly?
My best estimate is about 500 meters.
Okay. Which is how many feet for those of us who have
about 1,500 feet.
Okay.
5 football fields.
And as it starts to come up towards you.
Yes.
It comes closer.
It comes closer.
How close was it?
My best estimate for the range was about 1,000 feet.
Okay, that's pretty close.
Pretty close.
How big was it?
Again, going back to what I thought was seeing these 4 helicopters in this formation, I'm estimating that it was 200 to 300 feet across.
That's big.
Yeah. That's what it would take for 4 choppers to fly, see?
Was it a disc?
No, it was just like the lights indicated, it was when I first saw it, I said, I had a boomerang when I was a kid.
Okay.
That's what it reminded me of.
A boomerang.
A boomerang, a V-type.
Do you know about the Phoenix lights at all?
Absolutely.
And it was the same type of craft. Have you ever heard of Ellen Crystal?
I have, but I don't recall the details.
Ellen Crystal was a UFO researcher. She died of cancer a while back, and she filmed all sorts of UFO activity in the Hudson Valley.
Okay.
So there you are.
Exactly.
So it leaves, and now it's a boomerang, and you can kind of see the structure.
A little. I can make out I can't say I could tell the overall shape of it.
Okay.
That's because of the darkness. That was it. And these lights are really bright.
Right.
And
no sound.
Well, that's the thing. When I let that window down, I'm looking at this, and I'm going, that's one of my biggest memories of it. This thing is flying. It's making no sound. There's no slipstream sound.
Right.
There's no engine.
Right.
It's total silence. I also estimated its speed, its airspeed, at around 40 knots, which would be about 45 miles an hour. It was moving slowly, deliberately.
The only thing we have is a helicopter, and you would hear the boom, boom, boom,
exactly.
Boom. And you're not hearing that.
I'm not hearing it.
And nothing else flies at 45 miles an hour that looks like that.
Especially, and at this lower altitude. An aircraft would not have been in this area next to this mountain. So the story ends with me seeing this, and I'm just kind of stunned, really. Just kind of, what am I seeing here? And I'll never forget, I craned my neck back and looked back behind me. And the last thing I saw was this thing disappearing right over the treetops on the side of the mountain. That's how close it was.
That's close.
I just speculated. I've kind of come to believe that maybe whoever was flying that thing was using the mass of Storm King Mountain to cover their movement. That's kind of what I think.
Did it disappear?
No,
or did it just go behind the mountain?
It just, the treetops covered it. It obscured it.
Wow.
As it flew away.
Now, let's talk about emotions. Did you have any emotions while you were watching this thing?
Other than just sort of wonderment. Trust me, when people see these things, it's not like, oh my God, I'm only seeing a UFO. Your mind is kind of going, what am I seeing?
What am I seeing? Because there's nothing in your grid system, because this is your first encounter, and you're not sure what you're looking at.
Exactly. And I'm a trained observer.
I know you are.
I'm a trained observer. That's why I recorded these details in my mind of the lights, this white rotating light, which I want to talk about a little here in a moment. And what's this thing up to? What's it doing? I didn't mention it to anybody at the time, but something very strange happened. About 3 or 4 months later, I'm in my apartment in New Windsor, New York. A Saturday afternoon, I have the TV on, and WABC is on from New York City, the local station. And the announcer says, ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We're going to present a special report we just completed on the phenomenon of the Hudson Lights.
That's it, the Hudson Lights, Ellen Crystal.
And I'm going, well, that sounds interesting. So I sat down and watched this show. Within 60 seconds, there's a visual portrayal an artist has done of this boomerang V-shaped thing with the light groupings.
Wow.
I thought, well, holy smoke, I saw the Hudson Lights and didn't know it.
Wow.
And that was a real eye-opener. A couple of things I've learned since then I think your audience would like to know. This was such a big deal when it happened. Of course, it went on, I think, for almost 2 years.
Yeah, it was
Dr. J. Allen Hynek came up to New York to investigate and walked away saying, this isn't mass hypnosis, this isn't some hysteria, something happened here that's real.
Yeah.
And it was the last investigation he did before he died.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
because Hynek originally was there to debunk. He's the one that talked about the swamp gas.
Yeah.
And,
That was not his finest hour.
No, it wasn't.
But
then he retracted that and realized he had done something.
He's kind of a hero of mine in that regard.
And mine too. He was one of the pioneers of ufology. So.
Mm-hmm. The second thing I learned just a couple of years ago, I got interested in Whitley Strieber's
communion. Sure.
Communionist abduction stories. And I realized that his wife and him owned a cabin in upstate New York, so I pulled a map out.
Right. How close?
I found out where it was. It was 25 miles from where I lived.
Which is nothing for a craft like that.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing is, just recently I saw a clip with Chris Mellon.
Okay.
And now we're talking disclosure, the intelligence leader.
Former CIA guy.
Exactly. Apparently he had an interest in all this and looked at it closely from what I got from his interview. And Mr. Mellon said he concluded, he's an intelligence guy, he concluded or he believed that the Hudson Lights, because of their flight characteristics, which I described, slow moving, deliberate, was some type of surveying operation or mapping. And he thought maybe they were mapping our power grid or a road system.
Is there a nuclear base anywhere near there?
Yes, there is.
That's what they're after.
There's about, I would say about 20 or 25 miles from Storm King Mountain, there's a nuclear reactor site.
They're obsessed with nukes because I believe that's their trigger.
Yeah.
So it all starts to add up. Whitley Strieber 20 miles away, the whole abduction story.
And I'm in the middle of all that. So, I came to a little different conclusion. I too, from some training I have, said this looks like a recon mission.
Wow.
But I have a little different attitude about it. Now, this is right in your area. What if they're surveying us? Where do these people live? How do they live? How do they move? How do we communicate with them? And I believe that could have been what that white rotating light was, like a survey instrument.
Right.
That always fascinated me.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's a possibility they're surveying us.
Yeah. Well, it seems, from my opinion, they're, with the whole abduction and the breeding program and all of that, they're looking, in my opinion, for certain DNA markers.
Mm-hmm.
Because they can create hybrids. This is conjecture, but I think that they can create hybrids easier with a certain genetic, like Rh negative blood.
Yeah.
That might be. I've talked to many abductees who are Rh negative blood. Not that they're Nephilim or anything like that. It's just a blood type. Perhaps it's easier for them to create a hybrid being with someone, a female in particular, who's Rh negative. That's conjecture, because we can't sit down and have a real interview. But that's based on all the research. That's kind of what I think. I'll give you the last word, Dr. Mike, and thanks for coming on the record. Appreciate it.
I appreciate that. You're right. UFOs are real and they're burgeoning. And I think in a strange way, based on some of the writing and research I'm doing now, a little different area than you're working in, but I think God blessed me and planted a seed in me with that experience because of what's going on now.
Yeah.
And God has to give you an experience that you can't deny, and don't let others deny it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where I'm feeling with this thing and talking to you, which has been a great pleasure. It's been my pleasure to be with you.
Well, the pleasure is all ours, and thank you for coming on the record. Folks, there you have it. Don't forget our Christmas store. Lots of great deals there. LAMarzulli.com, LAMarzulli.com. You can stream all 30 DVDs by going to streaming.lamarzulli.net. Remember, folks, UFOs are real, burgeoning, and not going away. Thanks so much for watching.